Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We are much more organized than this. Usually it looks bad, but it's not. Welcome, everyone. This is Zoomcast, where we chat with inspiring guests. I am Antonina Mamzenko. This is Emma Collins. We are co-founders of Made for Documentary. If you're new here, Made for Documentary is a community and education hub for documentary family photographers and other documentary photographers. And feel free to check our website. We have some courses up there, so go check it out. So Emma, do you want to introduce Kristine?
Yeah, so today we've got the fantastic Kristine Nyborg. She's a Norwegian photographer, but based in Ottawa, Canada. You've moved about in Canada a bit recently, but it's at Ottawa now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So her work looks at the links between daily life, culture, mental health. It's very personal. There's always a really strong narrative in Kristine's work. It's really gentle and touching. So her early work, we'll show you a bit of your personal work and early work when we're chatting. Was very much about sort of subsistence lifestyles in the Arctic regions, animal care, that type of thing. And you've also sort of the baptism of fire that you went through is becoming a mother. If you don't know, Kristine had one child, and then 7 months later, you had
15 months.
7 months later, you fell pregnant with twins. So 15 months later, you had 3 children under 2.
Yeah. 1 to 3 in 15 months.
Yeah. So a little bit later, we'll be talking about that because she's currently in the throes of publishing her first book, which is based around motherhood. So,
but before we get into that, let's kind of go to the very beginning. Let's rewind a little bit and tell us how you came to be a photographer in the first place.
So when I was 19, I moved to California from Norway to go to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at school. I just knew I needed to be on the other side of the planet from my parents. And so I went to California and I started working at the school newspaper because I thought it was fun, because that's kind of a thing you do when you're a teenager. And then I decided I wanted to be a writer. I always liked writing. So I started at the journalism program at San Francisco State University. And because I like to do things by myself a lot, I decided I also need to learn how to make pictures, because obviously then I didn't need anybody to come with me to go do stuff. So I took a photo class and then I just got hooked. And then here we are.
So you started out on the actual story writing side and then moved to using photos to tell your stories more than the words.
Yeah, so for me, quality of the picture has never really been that important because the story is always the most important. And so when I learned to make pictures, like we were taught, manual exposure and stuff in like the first class, but then like the second, third, fourth, and fifth class were all about like narratives. And so you just kind of learn the manual stuff as you go. Like the camera just kind of became a tool that you started to use and learned as you went. So it was never really very focused on that part. I've always been very focused on the story part. And so I've carried that with me always, that like quality can be whatever, as long as like the elements of the story are there.
Yeah. So storyteller first, basically.
Yes, always.
That's interesting. Now, how did then you progress from like going on that course to learn photography because you wanted to tell stories and didn't want to be around people, other people, to doing what you do now?
Well, it's just been a progression of like basically how my brain works and how things have fallen into place in my life. It's just a combination of these two things. I've basically never said no to anything, which I don't recommend, and I'm definitely not teaching my kids that, but I just started saying yes to everything that seemed fun. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. But I mean, I was always flying by the seam of my pants, but I'm also like privileged in the sense that where I've grown up and my skin tone in the States. So I graduated college and moved to New York because I figured it was on the way home and I should live there for a year. And when you graduate from school in the States, you get to stay a year to work. And so while I was waiting for my work permit to apply for jobs, I wasn't allowed to work and I wasn't allowed to leave the country. And so I was in New York City with no way to make any money or go home. And so I started freelancing for Norwegian newspapers. And then when I finally got my work permit, that was my job. Like I already had a job. And so then I stayed in New York for about 5 years, freelancing for Scandinavian newspapers and media organizations mostly. And then my 5th year, I went to Alaska to do a story on a girl who's running the Iditarod race. And we got along really well. She had a really traumatic first race. And I was the whole premise of the story was just that I was going to follow this race that I'd read about so much. And then this Norwegian young girl was kind of like an underdog, excuse me, because she's it's mostly a race full of men and kind of older men. Mm-hmm. And then she had this traumatic experience. So we really bonded. And then when we got back to Anchorage after the race, I was like, I don't really want to go to New York anymore because I'd been in the Alaskan bush for 3 weeks. And I was like, this is so much more like my style. Like, what am I doing living in the asphalt jungle? And Sigrid was like, why don't you just stay? And I was like, okay. So then I went back to New York. I stayed there for a month to work and I packed up all of my stuff into storage and I rented out my room. And then I moved to Alaska for a year. And then when
I was going to say, because a lot of the stories that you're kind of well known for are based in these sort of cold climate.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of where I found. Yeah, that's where I found my calling. I wouldn't say that, but it's more like that's where I found what I really enjoyed doing, which I mean, I've always enjoyed telling stories of people and living their lives in their like sort of everyday sense. But New York City, like when you work as a photojournalist in New York City, it's all very geared towards like one direction. First of all, you have to survive. It's really hard. And then like you have to find enough work to also do the things that you want to do while also paying ridiculous rent. And so what I realized was when I was in Alaska, I spent nearly no money because like you just kind of, there's nothing to spend. You're living in the bush, like you just need food. And we were living rent free. And I was just helping Sigrid with her dogs in return for staying with her. And then I would photograph her at the same time. And both my cameras died in the cold. We had no power. So I didn't use any digital cameras because we didn't have any power. And yeah, we didn't have running water. It was a very weird, and like now we talk about it, her and I were like, that was insane. Like we would go on these long dog mushing trips in the bush with no cell service. There's no phones. So if we had like gone off a cliff, that would have been it. Like, or broken our leg, like nobody's coming. There's nobody who happens to come by in those places. But it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is not the path.
I think when you're young though, you don't think like that, do you? You feel invincible.
Yeah, I know. I was in my late 20s though, so I had a prefrontal cortex, like.
You just weren't using it efficiently at that point.
Yeah, it wasn't really. But it was fun. I think
it's also different, like when you become a parent or a mother in particular. I think there's something extra happens in your brain with like, I must not die.
Oh yeah, no, my anxiety levels now, like I didn't have anxiety. Now I have anxiety, and then especially thinking about all the things I did, and then that they might do those things too.
Yes.
I'm like, no. You're never leaving my side.
Are you selective about what stories you tell your children about what you did in the past? I'm selective. I'm like, okay, I'm not. Yeah. I don't want them to think that that's okay.
No, thanks.
They'll still do those things anyway.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched a little bit about like on your personal projects and how you got started with them. Yeah, share some photos as we talk. But so I assume that very first long form project that you did was an assignment. Was it?
Yeah,
an
it was
assignment?
started as a self-assignment. So when you work as a
Self-assignment.
photojournalist,
Okay.
you get assignments to survive, but you also need to make your own assignments to survive. And so like my sorry, I got distracted because I realized there's 2 of one picture in that.
Oh,
Okay, don't worry.
Just sidetrack. Yeah, so I would always come up with stories to do, and I used to spend, so I would work 11 months out of the year, like out of New York. I would be sent other places, but then 1 month out of the year, my birthday month, March, I would always pick a story to do somewhere else. So I'd save all year for like leaving New York for a month, because I feel like when you live in New York, it's kind of like a weekday, and then you have to have that break that's like a Sunday. And so March became like my Sunday. So I had to have, so I went to many different places in March, but Alaska was kind of like the final place. And it, like, going to Alaska for that self-assigned story that I did on Sigrid, like literally changed my entire life. So I'm really glad I did that, but it was also like, wow. But it's just kind of one of those things, when it clicks. Like, I am from Norway. I like the winter.
Yeah, no, it totally
like, I
makes
feel
sense.
comfortable in this environment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
someone else for sure.
It feels like you really go together with the environment.
Yeah. And
I think you have like an understanding of it as well, and not just the people and the place. I think that's an innate. I think that quality comes through in the pictures that you take of
yeah. So I'm like, when I make photographs, I like to stay with something for a long time, because if you stay with something for a long time, eventually the newness wears off, and it's not as like whenever something is new, you're like, oh, snap, this is really fun. And then, that kind of novelty wears down after a bit. And then when that wears down, I feel like that's when I start making my pictures. Does that make sense? Like, my pictures come after a while.
It makes total sense, because I think most, like, just as on a family photographer basis, it's much easier to take pictures of your own family than client families, because
you're in it.
That is exactly that. You're with them all the time. There's no newness, and you're that's all gone, and it's just finding the good stories and the good pictures. No pressure to do anything. Yeah.
But I mean, like, when I worked as a photojournalist, I wouldn't get time. Like, you just get very short amounts of time, sometimes longer, but then it just became about, like, how can I tap into that feeling of, like, okay, what is the overall view here? Like, what are all the different things that I see, and how are they coming together, and how can I make that shown in a way that is like my way of seeing it?
So it's almost like slightly two different muscles. Like, there's one for the long haul, and one where you kind of, as you said, tap into that. So you have to think super quickly and go, how can I be creative and tell the best story, but like in 2 hours, an hour or 30 minutes.
Right. But then you have to have that experience of the long haul to understand what that feeling is, right? To come into the quick stuff. So you have to, like, go that route, which is why I'm very adamant about, like, personal projects and spending time on things, is because it's very useful to you in your craft later.
Develops those muscles, and almost like intuition as well, isn't it? Like, it's
and
intuition, but it really is experience.
But I mean, that's what like, photography needs time. It doesn't happen overnight.
You start to understand what it is that really you find interesting when in moments of boredom and the sameness, things that you still find interesting, and, like, and that's how you can tap into, or learn to tap into, what it is, your view of the world. It makes your pictures different from other people's. In the same situation, you're going to take a different picture, because everyone's interested in a slightly different angle.
And so that's why, like, you can, if you look at press photographers, especially the ones that work for like AP or Getty, like they get sent to the place where everybody else gets sent to, right, every time. But some of them come back with pictures that nobody's ever seen before every time. because they just know how to intuitively tap into something that they have learned to recognize where the other pictures are. Instead of like standing with the crowd, they walk around it, you know? And it's just like, it's kind of the same when you're working on anything. It's like, okay, this is what I immediately see. Now I have to walk around it and see what else can I see. And then how can I translate that? And then, you know, over time you get like knowledge on light and knowledge on composition and knowledge on like shutter speeds and ISOs and different ways of toning things. And, you know, all those things trickle in over time. But like the first thing is to like develop that instinct of like, okay, how is this situation something that I can capture in a way that looks like I saw it, you know?
Did you ever get a chance to be creative on assignments for newspapers?
Yeah, you always have that opportunity. Not always so much time. The fastest assignment I ever had, I love this story because I had literally 2 minutes on a timer. That's like teeth brushing time, right? 2 minutes on a timer to photograph Usain Bolt.
Oh,
like,
wow.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like he was just like going through this like press circuit in Oslo on a boat, and I'd set up lights and everything. So the journalist was supposed to interview him and I was supposed to photograph him in 2 minutes. So like sometimes you just don't get enough time, but you can still, there's a lot of pictures you can make in 2 minutes if you're prepared, right? So it's always like those things are about setting up to like make it work. And then other times, you know, usually I would get like more than 2 minutes with somebody. And then my editor at the newspaper would tell me, make one picture for you and make the rest for us. Like, make sure that you always come back with one picture that's for you. And when you do that, often that's the one they publish because it's different.
Really?
Yeah.
And do you feel, presumably, like depending on who you're working for and who the editor is, some are more conservative than others?
Oh yeah, depends on the editor for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was an editor too. So when you work at a newspaper regularly, you get to sit in all the chairs after a while. And I remember like standing at the news desk, filling the newspaper with pictures and being like, well, like I've just put in like, I used to work for a business paper and I've just put in like 5 pictures in a row of white men in suits. Now I need something else, right? And if that person had come back with an assignment that was where something was different, no matter what it was, I wanted it in the paper because you got to think of the flow of the paper. The paper is its own story. So it's not just like one picture, one picture, one picture. It's like all the pictures together and with the ads in between. And so it's just like visual narratives isn't just about snapping that really beautiful one picture. It's about like making sure the story can be told in an effective way in the medium that it's supposed to be told in. Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah. That newspaper or magazine, whatever, has the stories and then there's an overall story. Even if it's unrelated stories, they still need to work together.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so everyone who's listening, go do your own pictures that kind of make your heart sing. We had another question about like, how do you, so you've that first assignment that you, long form assignment that you did, and the subsequent ones that you kind of self-assign to yourself. How do you come up with inspiration? How does it like come to you to, oh, I must go to Alaska and photograph husky?
Where do you find it from?
That's the journalism part of it. So like to be a journalist, I think you need to be like naturally curious. I think that's probably like the number one condition of the job. Maybe some writing skills. But yeah, I'm very curious. So I'm always talking to people about whatever. I'll stop people at the store and start up a conversation, or like some person on the street. I don't know if they make eye contact, they're lost. I'm like, oh yeah, here's an invitation. But I was photographing for the Norwegian embassy in Washington one Christmas, and then they had a Christmas party after, or they had there's a big tree at the Washington DC train station that is a gift from Norway every year. It's a Norwegian tree. And so I went to photograph that ceremony, and then afterwards they had a party. And at this party, this woman had just come back from Alaska on a diplomatic trip and was like telling me a story about this girl who was like living with an Inuit in northern Alaska, learning to mush dogs so she could run the Iditarod race. And I remember having read a book about the Iditarod race like 10 years before, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, give me her info. And so I contacted Sigrid. I sent her an email. I was like, and she is shy, like she does not or she used to be, I don't think she is anymore, but she was like not very keen on me coming. And so I wrote her and I was like, but I really want to do this. I think what you're doing is amazing. I want to see it, and I would love to photograph you if I can. She's like, but why don't you follow Robert? Robert is this Norwegian guy who's won the Iditarod like 2 or 3 times, and it's her mentor. And she's like, he's much more interesting, and he is a very interesting guy, but he's also just, you know, he's a guy. So I was like, no, I don't really want to do Robert. I really want to do you. It's your first race. I think that's more interesting. And so she's like, okay. And then I didn't hear from her. This was in December or January. And I didn't hear from her. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I was trying to email her, but you know, she's in the bush, so she has no email. And so February came, and that's when I was supposed to go. And it was like a week before I was supposed to go, and I still hadn't heard from her. And I was like, this is nuts. And then finally I was like, well, I know she's where she's going to be. So I just went.
You gonna go?
And then I got in a hostel in Anchorage and rented a car. And then like the night I arrived, I was like, I'm here. Where are you? And she's like, oh, okay. And so she gave me the address. So the next day I showed up at the house she's staying at, and she's like kind of confused. And I'm like, well, you know, I still want to do this story. Are we okay? And she's
I'm not
like,
going to give up. You're not going to get
like, all right. And so that's where it started. And then she was living with a host family in Knik, which is outside of Anchorage. And so I just like ended up staying with them. So I just drove back to Anchorage, got my stuff, and then I like literally shared a bed with her from that day. And it was like not romantic. It's just like we just became really fast friends, and we're almost the same age. I'm 2 years older than her. We're both Norwegian, so the language thing was nice. Like we could speak our language, and yeah, we just became really, really good friends. And then that friendship lasted through her whole race. And she got food poisoning. She broke her nose. Like so much stuff happened. And then I would be at every checkpoint being like, hi. So like, yeah, I was her. Well, it was not every checkpoint. I was at 3 checkpoints. It's expensive to go to Alaska and do the Iditarod because you got to fly private planes to these different villages.
But I bet it was quite nice for her having you greeting her at these different.
Oh yeah, she said that was like,
kept her going.
It was definitely an interesting experience. But by the end of that trip, like she had become like super good friend, like a sister. It felt like a sister actually. Like, and that's how our relationship has evolved. We've become kind of like sisters. Mm-hmm. Like I have a relationship with her parents. I know her brother. So yeah, that was in 2007. So that's many years ago.
So then do you bring the same sort of like the same determination and into all other personal work that you do? Is it the same kind of process where you like get an idea, I really want to tell a story, and you just pursue it no matter what?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I think I'm a little bit like that with everything that I do, because I'm very, very lucky to be doing something that I love. Mm-hmm. And because I'm kind of self-sustained in it, I get to go down my own rabbit holes and test things out, and sometimes things don't work, and then I just like, all right, that didn't work, next thing.
Sometimes I was just going to ask about that. I mean, sometimes things must get to a dead end, or maybe they get to a dead end at a certain point and maybe start again at another point, or so you just you kind of find if you realize this is not going anywhere, you'll just leave it and move on for something else, even though you've got that sort of dogged determination to really explore things and go deep and long.
It
must be frustrating when things don't work out.
sometimes, but also like I know it feeds into the greater good. And in Norway, if you ever go to Norway and you're a tourist, you'll be served with our hiking rules. We have hiking rules in Norway. They're called fjellvettreglene. It means that you have to have sense when you walk into the mountains. And there's like 7 of them. But my favorite one is there is no shame in turning around. And I feel like that's kind of my motto. It's like, all right, we made it this far. We can go and start. So let's go to a different trail. It's okay.
So once you've got like a story, whether it's a personal one or you're kind of something that you're curious or interested about, how do you then find the narrative that's really the thing that you want? Because it can be like, I mean,
you can tell a story in so many different ways. You can sort of zero in on like one element or another element.
How do you decide what it is that's really interesting? Is it something that's interesting to you, or do you think it's something that you think will be appealing to other people?
I have to stay true to whatever the story is, right? So the story usually reveals itself as you go. So you do research first. If you're starting it like I was doing on Sigrid, then it's a research project essentially. So I have to learn about the Iditarod, I have to learn about dog care, I have to learn about the different competitors, the different people, where they stand in the race, like that kind of stuff. So then you go in with like with that knowledge in your head, and you can work from that. But like as far as the pictures are concerned, when you get to the end, like somewhere in the middle, you assess, where is this going? Like what are the pictures saying? So this is the story, but are the pictures saying the story? And then you have to sort of figure out, okay, well, the pictures aren't saying the story, so I need something to tell these parts. And if those parts aren't showing, then it's not going to make sense. So you kind of have to like evaluate as you go, but the story is always the center. Like whatever the story is, that's what you have to stay true to. And then it doesn't matter to me like what other people think. If the story is the story, then like that's the fact. And so, but when I get to the like finishing stages of anything, I don't do it by myself. I have people, like I have friends that are also photographers. I sometimes hire people to help me. Actually, lately I've hired lots of people to help me because it's hard. This story is harder because it's mine. So yeah. I don't know if the story is what it is because I'm standing in the middle of it. It's so personal.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's harder to extract yourself from it because you're so emotionally attached to the content.
Yeah. I mean, I was emotionally attached to my dog musher story too, but it was different. It wasn't my story, it was hers. Yeah. And so I just had to make sure that she was the one who was like in the story in a true way. But yeah, with this work, it's like nearly impossible. For the longest time, I didn't even think of this work as a project because it was just pictures I made to get by, And so it just became a project when I showed it to one of my Norwegian photographer friends. Okay. And she was like, Christina, this is a book. And I was like, what? No, I don't make books. But now I do.
Well, it's so interesting because it was actually one of our questions, and now we started talking about this new project that you doing. That's called Learning to Speak Bear. Mm-hmm. And you basically just answered the question that we had, like, at what point did you know that was a thing? That was a book?
You must have felt there was something there in your archives that you were showing to your friend.
Yeah. So because I don't show my kids' faces ever. Yeah. Like you will not find them. Because my husband's very private and he's married to me, which I find slightly amusing. And so, but like he's very concerned with our privacy, and I am too. And so like when we first started sharing our children from like the day one, we never shared their faces. I think maybe the first ever baby picture had an eye in it, and that's it. And so I have stayed true to that for now 9 years. My oldest is 9. And I realized that like it's kind of like a weird thing to have all these pictures with no faces in them. So I showed them to my friend, and she got really hooked on them.
Mm.
Yeah. But then I also she also knew my story, right? She knew how much trouble this caused me in a good sense. I mean, they're always going to be worth it, but it was, like you said, a trial by fire, because it's a little bit unusual to have 3 children in 15 months. And then I had no help. And so I was definitely teetering on the edge there for a bit.
So do you think, so obviously you're in the throes of full-on motherhood, baby mothering.
Yeah.
But you're still taking photos, like you're not working, but you're taking photos. Was that like almost like your therapy, your way of getting through?
Well, when we got pregnant, we were living in Norway. And so my idea of being a mother was the Norwegian way of being a mother, where you have a child, you get to spend the first year with them, and off they go to daycare, and you get to go back to work. But then my husband got a PhD in Vancouver, and he's Canadian. And so I was like, all right, sure, because, I say yes to everything. So we go to Vancouver with our newborn baby. And then I was like, and I didn't know when I said yes, what it was like to be a mom, because I wasn't one yet.
Yeah.
And so I got to Vancouver, and luckily we lived in the same building as his sister, and she is fantastic. Both his sisters actually lived in the same building, and they were fantastic. My sister-in-laws are beautiful people. And so they would come and help me with the baby. And then because I wasn't allowed to live in Canada, and he wasn't allowed to live in Norway, we didn't have the right paperwork yet. And so we went back to Norway for 6 months. And that's when we got pregnant with twins. Don't go to Norway in the winter.
There's something about Norway.
Norway in the winter is very, very difficult with the baby.
Not much to do.
Dark all the time.
But then, so then I got pregnant with these twins, and that complicated a lot of things. And so we ended up having to move to next to his university in Vancouver. And so his sisters were no longer nearby. And I was just by myself all the time in a new place where I didn't know anybody.
3 little kids.
With 3 babies. And they all fit on, one stroller.
Wow.
But luckily for me, that place we moved to was actually perfect, because it's a tiny community next to university, and it's up on a hill above Vancouver with forests all around. It's beautiful there, and there's lots of families with little kids, and there's 2 playgrounds, so you meet everybody.
Yeah
And that's, you find your people and moms, right?
You definitely do. And at that age, it's very much around the people who are experiencing the same sort of time, the same age of children, and you've got that natural empathy with people, haven't you? You've got these friends who understand what you're going through. Yeah,
but it's just you're meeting on common grounds, literally, playground and mentally.
Yes, definitely. So the pictures of I love the title, by the way, Learning to Speak Bear. Actually, where did that come from?
Well, this kid here, my oldest, he is an inventor of many words, and he could speak from he was 1 year old. He's very talkative still. It's fun. And I used to ask him lots of questions to keep the day going. And one day I asked him what we're talking about different languages. And then I said, but what does mama speak? Because I speak Norwegian, and I used to speak Norwegian to them until I got overwhelmed and gave up. And he's Norwegian. And then I asked him, but what do you speak? And he said, motorcycle. And I said, and he did. I mean, that was his thing. He used to make car noises all the time. Or leaf blower noises. That was his new favorite after a while. That was really annoying face. He'd walk around with a stick and go like a leaf blower. The most annoying tool in the world. And my child was obsessed with it. And then it was mufflers. After that, it was mufflers. But yeah, so he said he spoke motorcycle, and I realized looking at him that I'm learning to speak his language. He's like a little bear to me, and I'm learning to speak his language through all of these different ways that he expresses himself to me, through the car noises and the weird things he says and the weird words he makes up, and how his body, this is also him, how his like body does weird stuff. Like he just does weird stuff all the time. And it's just the nature of how he works. And it's like learning, because he doesn't tell me how he's doing often in words, but I have to understand it from what he's like expressing in his body and his emotions. And that's like, so that's where it came from. It's a very convoluted
Just
story.
In a way, how you're tuning in when you're out with Sigrid, for example, or any of you know, the people that you're following in your photojournalistic life, and how you're tuning into who they are. You're doing the same thing with your kids, and how to communicate, or how they're communicating with you. And
yes, but it's just far more intense.
Yes.
Like, I can't have a break from it. Just always there. Yeah, but it's definitely like
so did
body
you know
language
that was the title straight away, or was it like, did you have a working title and then kind of it's really
I've had many titles, but I think like that was the first one I picked, and it's the one I always came back to.
I think it's because it's not immediately obvious, but I think all parents can understand what you mean.
I think even before you explained it, like I understood that it's about you know, trying to understand your kids kind of in a way.
It's not literal. It's a really lovely way of conjuring up an idea, a picture that we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And did you do a lot of sort of journaling or writing around this as you were sort of working on it? Or
I've always done that. I mean, I'm a journaler. Like that's
you're a writer. Yeah, that's your first love, isn't it? So.
Always journaling. But I luckily kept a bunch of their, like one of my friends in Norway, I went home to Norway with the kids when they were 2 and one had just turned 4 and the other 2 were just going to turn 3, and I spent 10 weeks alone with them in Norway in the summer. Don't do that. But one of my friends, she was like listening to my kids talk, and she's like, "Are you writing any of this down?" I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Keep a notes thing." And so ever since she said that, I've kept notes, like a pinned notes in my phone where I write down their weird quotes. And some of them are in the book now.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to ask as well. Like, is it just pictures, or is it going to be words as well?
No, there's some words, absolutely.
Okay,
I don't think I'll ever do anything that doesn't have some words.
And the words, as well as some of the quotes that you've sort of cherry picked from what they've said over the years, are some of the text about you and your feelings.
Yeah. And then I had one of my close friends in Norway. She's an author, so she wrote the introduction. And then so there's an introduction and then outroduction and some text in between.
That's brilliant. We'll post, by the way, everyone who's listening, we'll post a link. It's not available yet, the book, is it?
No,
you're gonna launch it soon.
So the book has to go through a Kickstarter process first, and we can talk about how book publishing works. But so that Kickstarter launches in 2 weeks. And so and kickstarting is hard. So anyone who wants to help pull that link out into the social world would be awesome. The social media punishes small businesses. I'm sure you've noticed. And it's like very frustrating to like, I have a community of people I speak to on social media because I like speaking to them. I don't let bots into my account, so I delete them when they follow me, and I'm very like kind of particular about my account. So I have conversations on social media every day with my community of people. But then when it comes time for me to talk to them about something I'm doing, I can't get to them, right? It's weird. Unless I pay Meta lots of money, which I sometimes do.
Well, we'll definitely share a link, and then we'll put a link to your website as well, so people can sign up to the newsletter.
Awesome.
So they know when it's live, because it sounds like an awesome project. But let's dive into it. So you said you got some help with the book and the sequencing and the sort of even the realization that it was a book. And I actually, like, I'm working on my first book as well right now, very different subject matter. But it also didn't ever start as a book. It was kind of like just taking pictures and then, you know, oh, it's a book. Someone else told me. But how, once you kind of get this body of work, and I imagine you had thousands of pictures, how does that process of narrowing down worked for you? How did you arrive at the sequence or the structure of the book that you've arrived at? I assume it's kind of ready. Kickstarter is launching.
No, it's designed and ready now. So I just need to like pay the printing company, or we need to pay the printing company. And
we all need to collectively pay the printing company.
And my publisher too. But yeah, so the body of work, you know, it's like a filtering system. You kind of like start wide and then trickle in and trickle in and trickle in, and it's a process. So 2 years ago, I had finished teaching a bunch of workshops, and just as the pandemic started, it was nuts. I had like 50 students when the pandemic started, and they were all over the world. And I was like, how am I supposed to do this and 3 kids at home and all this information that we have to digest? And it was nuts, but it turned out beautifully. It was wonderful. But by May, I was exhausted. And so one of my friends in Norway, she's a very well-established photographer. She's a member of 7. And she was hosting a workshop, and I know her and I love her and I know she's a great teacher, and I just needed to be in somebody else's Zoom, you know, like I just needed to sit and listen to somebody else talk about something. So I sent her a message because we're friends, and I was like, would it be weird if I signed up for your class? I just need to like hang out with you for a minute. And she's like, oh, it's fine. So then I signed up, and I made some more friends in that class, and we just like hung out there. But anyways, the other people were making new projects, or, you know, actively making pictures of something or collecting something. I was like, you know what, Linda, I do not have it in me right now. So here's this work. So I sent her the pictures, and that's when this ball started rolling. So the first sequence that was ever made was a diptych, and that I made into a video, and you can see it on I put it on different places on my website. I wrote a blog recently about personal projects, and I put both videos of Sigrid's project and Learning to Speak Bear. So that was the first edition of Learning to Speak Bear. And then when she like tickled me into thinking it should be a book, I started researching books, and journalist, you know, got to research. So I like spent the fall figuring out, how does this work with the book industry? And then I took a workshop from ICP about making your own book with a very, very lovely teacher. And so then I was like, I put together my own book, like a dummy. But I always knew I didn't want to do it myself because it's too much. There's too much to know. Like there's too many cogs in that wheel, and it's like really complicated book publishing. But I did know that there's one publisher that I really like, because I've bought several of her books, and I like how she speaks out. Like I like how she presents her values, and the books that she's had have often been about things that are in the mind and not so much like, this is cool, you know. And so I found out she was doing a portfolio review session, and so I signed up, and then I showed her the work, and I was like, and then like, but we got along really well, because what ended up happening was like, I had to see her in her lunch break because the people who were organizing the portfolio review didn't get me linked up to her in the time frame that I was supposed to have with her. So I was like devastated. So I'm like, I wanted to see you. Can we like make this happen? And she's like, sure, at lunch break. And so I ended up getting 40 minutes with her instead of 20 because we got along so well. And
that's great.
And then, yeah, she was interested, and she's like, I have to wait a bit. I have too many. That was last March. Yeah, it was last March. And she's like, I have to wait a bit. I have too many things happening right now. And then in May, she's like, okay, let's go. And I was like, oh, that was fast. Yeah, sure.
So did you pitch the idea at the
Mhm.
lunch /
I did.
portfolio review? You went just like, I think that should be a book. Can you publish it? And she then said, yeah.
Well, I was upfront about it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is what happened. This is the work.
Yeah.
This is, but I was like, when I do stuff like that, I'm very prepared. I don't like go in with like, here's some photos, have a look. You know, it's more like, here's the PDF, here's all my information, here's a website dedicated to it. Here's like the link to the slideshow that I made in this class. Do you want a physical copy of the book or the PDF of it? Because I made a dummy, you know, like, I'm like, let's go.
Had you already, in terms of getting it to that stage, had you worked with your friend Linda in Norway?
No. So that part I did mostly on my own. So in the book publishing class, the designer that leads that class, she will like make suggestions, and the class would make suggestions, but I'm kind of a stubborn person, so I was like, okay, this is great, but I have because I don't know them, so I can't trust their opinion, but I do have
everyone has their own opinion as well, like
that's
so
true. You gotta find people you trust, I think, on this, especially when it's personal.
Yeah. And so I have to like have somebody who understands the work and don't think it's silly, because that's the thing. I've taken this work to so many portfolio reviews now, and it sometimes is a little intimidating sitting down with like hard news editors or gallery owners and being like, here's a picture of poop. You know, it's like, yeah, but I'm like, part of my motivation for doing this is like our community, you know, with like the family, because I really found my people in the family documentary community, because all these moms who also like taking pictures, like, how are they not my people? And I realized that there is something lacking from photojournalism in general for me when I was working in that field, was this like ability to tell our own stories, you know, and how we shouldn't just all parachute into somewhere and just like run around and make pictures from the outside. And then like, we have to understand how things work. And now that is becoming more, people are doing this more now, where it's like people get to tell their own stories from their own communities. And that's important because we need their voices, right?
Yeah, I think it's really something that's happened in the last few years, where it's quite noticeable that it's people seem to be deeply rooted into the stories that they're telling, and it makes so much difference when you've got that connection. Or even like, you know, how you lived with Sigrid when you were following her, you become part of their life, and the story that's being told, and it seems so much more genuine.
Well, one of the times I published that story, so that story's been published many different times, because Sigrid became like the world champion dog musher. That was fun. But yeah, she's cool. Like, I knew she was cool because she's so like focused. But yeah, so one time when I published a story, I wrote the story about her crossing the finish line as the world champion dog musher, because I was there when it happened, luckily. And I remember like submitting the story to this magazine in Norway. And then I had some friends who worked there at the magazine, who had apparently talked to the editor about my project on Sigrid. And then the editor emailed me, it's like, so it's come to my attention that you're friends with Sigrid. And I was like, I've been following her for 10 years. Like, it kind of happens when you are this close. And but I'm like, but I made it clear, like, it's always been my, like, with Sigrid, it's always been very clear what my role is in her life, alongside the fact that we're friends, but I do have this role as her storyteller too, right? Like, and so, because the editor was like, we don't publish stories on your friends. And I was like,
I was gonna like, was it like, is it a bad thing? That's how is it a bad thing?
So in journalism, traditionally, that has been a like, no, you don't, like, because it's like, you know, it's supposed to be a place that doesn't allow for people, but people, I mean, it's still, but it's like, look at how the world works. It's all silly.
We need to be, you can't be impartial. Actually, being impartial maybe is important, but actually more important to be connected to something.
Yeah, I think so. But you have to know, you have to be able to tell the real story, though. You can't like sugarcoat things or, you know, elevate people just because you know them. But anyways, I remember feeling like well, that's kind of silly. You want like an archive of 10 years, but you don't want me to have a relationship with her? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
equally
anyways,
with like motherhood stories, it's been, I think, in the last couple of years, last year in particular, I've noticed there are books being published kind of on the subject, and
oh yeah, hello
it's like
lockdown.
hello
Yeah,
lockdown.
lockdown.
Yeah, suddenly certain people, certain photojournalists that couldn't photograph in faraway places, they discovered that they have families now as well.
Yeah.
We always joke
Yeah.
about that.
Well, the women I'm all for, but there
No,
was
no,
there was some
talking about
men. I'm
men.
like,
Yeah, I'm talking about
dude.
men, obviously.
Yeah, we're talking. We've had this conversation several
Many
times.
times, yeah.
Slightly annoying.
But it's always been a bit like it's hidden, like the motherhood, particularly, it's sort of hidden work. So even like as a photojournalist, you have kids and you go off and photograph, but you're not suddenly not a mother, and it's not the story that's being told. Whereas there's so many different stories, and everyone has a different but similar.
Yeah,
it
happens all over the world, but everyone's experiencing similar things, but in
very different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the other motivation for me with this book is like, if we start normalizing pictures of poop and tired parents and like food on the floor in social media and everywhere, then, because part of my problem when I was stuck with 3 kids, and I was stuck, like you can't go anywhere. So it wasn't like a bad thing. It just was the fact
it just
I was stuck.
Yes.
And I would go on social media and everyone seemed to have it so together. And I was literally falling apart at the seams. Like there was one day where I remember I was drinking my cold cup of coffee and I was wearing yesterday's shirt on inside out and backwards. So it's like everything was wrong and the kids were screaming and it's just, I remember thinking, I feel so alone now. Like, this is like, am I the only person who is struggling with this? But that's when I started sharing. And that's when I was like, okay, I got to put some pictures on the computer and I got to say how it is. And I started with a Norwegian blog, and I wrote a Norwegian blog for like a year. And then that got syndicated in one of the newspapers. And then trolls started hating me on it because I was like complaining that I didn't have daycare because it was too expensive. It cost us $3,000 a month to put our kids in daycare. And we didn't have that. He was a student. I'm a photojournalist. I just moved to Canada. There was like no way. And so, yeah, so I was like talking about how different it was from Norway, where everything is really set up to have kids. Like, it's really, Norway's very nice. Kids in Norway.
Yeah, I have lots of Swedish friends, and I've envied them because I think it's a similar setup in Sweden as it is to Norway.
Well, there's like in Scandinavia, there's this communal sense that, you know, you go home from work to eat dinner with your family. And if your kid is sick, you go home to take care of your kid who's sick. And you have like many weeks of vacation and leave and daycare spots that are available to you. I mean, it's just like when I was pregnant with my first kid, I went to photograph the Norwegian finance minister at his office in the parliament. And I was like, huge. And he's this like, he's the former one, obviously, but he's a potato farmer, I think, by trade. So he has like farm hands, you know, big hands. And he looks at my belly and he touches this very inappropriately, touches my belly. And he's like, oh, I like this. This is growth. Because he sees my belly as economic growth, the finance minister of my country. It's like looking at me as like, she's growing my nation. You know?
More taxes.
Yeah. More taxes, more, you know, but it's just, it all feeds into community, right?
Yeah.
And so,
right. Like just
really...
as you're telling this story, I'm reminded that I mean, UK politics are a bit crazy right now, but a couple of days ago, our parliament voted that babies are not allowed in parliament.
Oh yeah, and that's why they're taking Boris Johnson out today.
Yay!
But yeah, so the yeah, I was, oh, the syndication. So yeah, so I wrote this blog and they put it in the Norwegian newspapers, and it was like syndicated through one Norwegian media company. So it was like many newspapers. And then I made the mistake of reading the comments on Facebook, which was not something I'll ever do again. And it was just about like how I should be happy that I'm a housewife, and it's like the most noble profession in the world. And I was like, that isn't paid, you know, like it's just, it was nuts. But it was also lots of other comments, very positive, happy comments, and being like, oh my gosh, that's insane how far behind Canada is, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's, yeah, so I wrote a blog. Basically, that was the story about, I'll stop talking.
It's fascinating because like a few years later in my sort of like journey of motherhood, I had this sort of same realization as you, where like I was feeling the pressure and I was miserable. Like I didn't feel like I was good enough, because what I was seeing everywhere was these sort of images of like beautiful, perfect, happy, wonderful lives, and it starts making you feel bad about yourself. And certainly something that led me to this community, and like the power of spreading or making people realize that they don't have to be like that, that it's just beautiful to be truthful to yourself.
Yeah. Well, the truth is like, I was there's like something, if you start lying, then it becomes so much work. You have to like sustain the lie in a way. But if you're just real from the get-go, there's nothing to worry about. You just keep living your life. Exactly. And so, but actually that's what I was trying to say with my convoluted story. The trolls was like fuel on my fire. I was like, well, these people don't understand what this is. Like clearly, like they're all men, obviously, but like, it's just, you don't understand what this is. So then I'm just going to keep telling you. And so that's when I started sharing on Instagram these anonymous pictures. And then every caption, pretty much, I would just be writing about like everything that hurt. And I do it on Facebook. And so I started doing it in English instead. And so then it became a bigger community. Obviously, Norway's tiny. So, and then I started realizing we are many people who feel this way. Yeah. Many people, pretty much everybody.
I'm going to share some, like there's some other pictures actually which I haven't shared yet, so I'm just going to share the screen again. These are outtakes from your book, I think, that you've sent over.
Yeah, well, some are in the book and some are not. Okay. You wanted more, so I was like, well, you can have some outtakes. Yeah, this is in the book, and this is in the book.
So lovely.
And this is in the book. I think all the first 5 are in the
first
book.
One, yeah.
This one. I made up a statistic. I didn't make it up. I calculated that if you spend 10 minutes 3 times a day cleaning up food on the floor, it takes about 10 minutes to clean up all the peas and things that fall there, or quinoa, which is terrible. But if you spend 10 minutes 3 times a day cleaning up after the kids under the table of the dining table, and you do that for 5 years, you've spent 37 days of your life only cleaning under the table. That's all you've done for 37 days straight, no sleep. Isn't that nuts? And that's just it's just a little thing that you do,
Yeah, and it's the one meal,
But if you add all those tasks, try to make a thing for yourself and add up all the tasks that you've done every day in your routine, and see how much time you spent on it. It's insane. You're gonna like really get mad. Like so mad. Yeah. Because it's not recognized.
I'll stop cleaning.
It's really surprising how all those little things add up as well, isn't it?
And it's not to mention all the mental load. But it's not
but that's on top of that. Yeah.
That's even more exhausting than I find the mental load of it. It's like insane.
Oh yeah, so the psychology of this is bonkers.
And I only have one child, so
you think it's going to get better as they get older? Sorry, guys,
no, I think it's going to get worse for me.
Yeah,
I'm like, I gotta send these people out on their own. Oh my goodness!
But also, like in the house as well, it's like teenagers are so self-centered that they don't see outside of their own little world and their friendship groups and the exciting, lovely things that they're going to do with their friends. And they kind of, they, not maliciously, but they just think that magic pixies come and tidy everything up for them. And, you know, like I've lost, like the other day I went into the cutlery drawer. I'm like, where's all the knives? Everybody was like, I need a knife. Where's all the knives? They're all in their bedrooms because they've taken stuff from the bedrooms and they've not brought them back down again. There's a number of, like, I've added up, funnily enough, did a similar task. How many times a day or a week I go and pick things from their bedrooms to bring them back down to do the washing up, and this adds up to quite a lot of time.
It just reminds me of that. I don't know if any of you watched The Good Place. I'm a big fan of The Good Place.
The Good Place.
And there's that scene where Eleanor says something along the lines like, "Why does it no longer laundry doesn't magically happen anymore?" And Chidi goes like, "Well, it wasn't magic, Eleanor. I wasn't doing it."
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you kind of decided that you don't want to deal with sort of self-publishing a book because it's just complicated. So I assume you kind of leaving lots of decisions up to the publisher or not?
Well, as it turns out, I get to decide lots of things.
Okay.
So,
what kind of things have you been deciding?
No, I think it's partially my publisher is lovely. I really like her. So the reason I went with the publisher is because I need accountability to be able to do stuff, or things will just get put on the back burner and then it'll just stay there. But if I have a publisher who says, let's go, then I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I got my flag up. We're going.
Yeah.
And so I need her to hold me accountable to things. And I told her that from the start. I was like, send me your timeline because I got to plot into my calendar so I can have deadlines, because I work on deadlines. So my brain has a slight divergence, which means I get distracted, and which is essentially what it is. And so when I need to do something, I have to set a deadline for myself. And I'm pretty good at upholding my own deadlines for my own job, not so much for other things. But like my work is really important to me because I love it. And so that stays in a happy place for the most part. And so she gave me some deadlines. So then I wanted to find a designer, and I was very particular because she has a designer she already works with, but he's a man. And I was like, nope, there's no man that's touching this project. This project will be about me and the kids and motherhood in general. But for that to happen, I needed to be like in a safe space all the time. And so, and not to say that like my husband's a wonderful safe spaces, like men can be safe spaces, but I didn't know this man. And so I wanted to find a designer. And so I went looking for a female one, and it's actually kind of hard to find. Like they're not that many in photo book world, but I did find one through some friends in Poland, Anya.
Wow.
She's not a mother, but she's a woman. And I thought maybe this is good because she's not a mother. She can also make this a translatable to people who are not moms.
More objective, but yeah.
And that was actually super great because the first time I sent it to her, she came back with, she had changed the sequence, and I was like, this is not my sequence. I was kind of freaking out about it. And then I was like, and she made a wonderful sequence. It wasn't that. It was just like, I was like, but this doesn't feel right. And I contacted my publisher. I was like, does this feel right to you? She's like, no, I kind of like yours better. And so I was like, okay, but something's off with mine because it didn't translate into the book. Yeah. And so then I started working on the sequence more. And that's, so the sequencing went through many people because I would make one and then I would send it to people who knew what I was doing. And then I would send it to some people who knew less about what I was doing and that I trusted. And then eventually the sequence like took form in a sort of a collective experience. So in the end, it was still mine. It's just that like
I fine-tuned a little bit.
But the designer really challenged me on it. And then like throughout this process, she's been such a great collaborator. I'm just like, I really like her. And we've made this book where she's taken my pictures, but like in the design of the book itself is messy, which I love, because she's like made all the pages unaligned. No pages match. It's all a big
so
mess.
cool.
Wow.
It's gonna be so fun. I can't wait to see it. Like physically, I'm dying for it. And then she showed me something she'd done with her husband's book. He's a photographer too. And there was like a little flip thing that went up. So, and underneath it was texts. And I was like, Anya, what if we like have hidden texts and then I can say what I really feel? And so
that's cool. I love it.
But then we couldn't do it with the binding the way it was. So it's got Japanese binding also, which is like when 2 pages at the edge, they're attached. It's a folded piece of paper. So you have to like flip it open and read like in the tiny little space.
Oh, wow.
There's like a little text about like how I feel.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's actually hidden.
Yeah, literally.
Well, it's kind of, it makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a hidden thought, right? Like we all carry those like hidden thoughts of like,
so we don't necessarily like share.
We don't say them out loud, or I do, but like most people don't.
Yeah,
like nobody's going to be surprised by anything I say in this book because I've already said it a million times.
That's a really lovely, like a lovely sort of hidden subtext to the book as well, that it's showing the things we all think that we don't dare say, and you've kind of represented it in a hidden way as well. I think that's really clever layering of the story. It's nice.
Really good. Like I found from my own experiences that having someone who has experience designing books is so cool, because they, exactly as you said, they can give you ideas that you wouldn't have thought of because you don't have that experience. You don't know how printing works, what is even possible. Like you don't even know
printing.
Yeah. I'm like in the throes of that right now as well. Like, oh my God.
But that's the thing, like because I firmly believe that we have different professions for a reason. That's why you hire a photographer, but also why you hire a designer, you know, like that is their job. That's what they know. That's what they're passionate about. They're going to bring something extra to the table that's going to be well worth whatever you like pay them.
Absolutely. I love that interpretation of the
messiness of family life.
That she's done a messy layout.
She's brilliant.
Such a brilliant idea to do the messy layout, because that motherhood's messy, and she's really picked up on that imperfect, the idea of the imperfection.
Oh my God, I can't wait to get this book now.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, really.
But then we had another collaboration that was fun. So a lot of like the book has been made through like her and I not being on the same page exactly, but finding like a middle ground.
So you know, on your website originally you paired your images as diptychs. Is it still like that in the book, or
no? Some are like, I fought for some to stay intact, like the bottles in the fog. They needed to be back. They're not diptychs on but they're back to back in the sequence,
right?
Just because like that is a message. You know, I need that message to be there. But yeah, with the cover, she wanted to have a white cover, and I was like, I am a mother. I have nothing that is white. Nothing is white.
Dirty white.
It gets messy right away. And so the compromise was, I sat my kids down at a kitchen table one day. I gave them all the pastels, you know, like there's kind of like chalky color things. And I gave them each a piece of white paper. And I said, pick your favorite colors, smear it all over your hands, and touch the paper however you want. Just like go nuts. And they were like, fun. So they're like, you know, and so I took all 3 sheets of paper and I scanned them, and then I layered them on top of each other. And I sent that to Anya. I'm like, here, this can work. Well, actually, it was her suggestion to do it in that was actually her suggestion, to give them a piece of paper, but she said to use chalk, or to use charcoal. You know, it's like make it black. It has like colors.
And all the pictures in the book are colorful, aren't they? You know,
and so, but I mean, she has come to the table with awesome ideas throughout the whole process, and I just don't think this book would be what it is without her. And then to have the support and like backing of Jennifer Yaffe, the publisher. She's also been super supportive, and like so this winter we got evicted from our house in the middle of the winter, and it was because he was selling it because the market, I'm sure, is going crazy at where you are too.
Mm.
And so we ended up having to move all of a sudden. And that was kind of a big thing. And it happened all in the middle of like all the book stuff.
Oh God.
So I had like 5 months this winter where I basically just did 4 months where I just like focused on trying to find us a home, moving us, getting the kids prepared to move. We're in a different province now. So it's just like, yeah, that was a bit much. But anyways, they were both so understanding through that process. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm missing all these deadlines. But yeah, they've been wonderful. So now we're here. We're finally, I was like, my goal was originally to be like able to do a Kickstarter maybe in like May for Mother's Day. But that came and went, and that's water under the bridge. And now it's July, and we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it.
Just gonna
middle
get it
of the
done.
summer, whatever, we'll do it.
That's gonna be a Christmas present then for everyone. Everyone buy themselves an early Christmas present.
Well, the thing is, the book then goes to the printing, and then depending on shipping times, because everything's clogged up, it might just be December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All your sisters, aunties, mothers.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to be wrapping up soon, but if anyone's watching has any questions, make sure you post them in the chat before we wrap up with Christina. Let me see. Emma, continue while I'm checking Facebook.
Sorry. Yeah. So tell us a bit about the Kickstarter campaign. So it's an interesting combination. So you're not self-publishing, you're publishing properly, but you're still
we still have to raise the funds to like publish it. It's just she takes care of everything, distribution. So the thing is, if you self-publish, you're going to also have to ship out however many books that you make, and shipping is really expensive.
Right.
But then like for the Kickstarter, you fundraise so that the book can actually go to print.
Yeah.
Because if it's not going to sell, then we find out if it will sell.
So
if it's not going to sell,
you're pre-selling basically.
Yeah. Yes, it's a pre-sale.
It's a
pre-sale with other things attached, because you have to raise. The thing is, Kickstarter takes a cut. The credit card company takes a cut. There's like a lot of cuts happening, and so it's like way more money than the actual printer needs, but because also shipping. So this is something I learned now. When you do a Kickstarter and you sell a physical good, you add shipping to whatever country. So there will be like international shipping, there will be Canada shipping, and there will be US shipping, but like, so there's tiers, right? And so whenever that money gets added in, that gets added to the final Kickstarter number. So like the number to raise is actually lower, but because people buy books with shipping, they pay more, right? And so that feeds it. So you have to take out the shipping money to like
so
get
you
the book
kind of have
out
to inflate the shipping amount that you add, because there's going to be a fee taken off that as well, kind of thing.
Well, the shipping, I'm going to try to keep as low as possible. I mean, it's going to be high because shipping is ridiculous right now. But it's
a heavy product as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, add some here. No. So what I'm doing instead is I'm adding, things like my workshops and prints and family sessions and other photo sessions. Like I'm just adding a bunch of other stuff too that can be redeemed without shipping, so that it's like adds to the bulk. I need that bulk to happen. But it's very complicated and so stressful. And then right now and you have to write the campaign. So you make a video for the campaign.
You have to have a video with it, don't you?
Yeah. And it's you shouldn't have it more than 2 minutes. Like you can't, that's 300 words. That's like nothing. Like you have to explain a whole 10-year project in 300 words, which it's good practice.
When you're doing it, is the guidance typically that you present and talk about, or are you showing pictures and things as well?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So it's a presentation of your work, essentially. It's not like an ad. Like an ad would be like something that we make for families to do our sessions, right? And so it's not like an ad. It's more like, here is what has been made. Here's how you can help. Like, here's the reason this project exists. Here's what it's going to look like. And I made like mock-ups of the book, so you can see what it's actually going to look like.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Learn so
And then
many
there's
things.
you have the whole sort of you have more flexibility to write a lot in the Kickstarter as well.
Yeah, in the text you can.
Yeah,
You want to keep it short. That people have. They say 7 seconds on a website. I'm going to count 3. Like you have to like get
to
them
catch
right
their
away.
attention really quickly.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, it's a noisy world out there. So I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be terrifying, but it's going to be an interesting new experience, you know, and it is what it is.
You have a good community though as well who understand your the premise as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I have a community that I started 3.5 years ago, essentially, when I did my first workshop. And I think like, because it's a conversation with me and the community, like I'm never trying to like scam my community out of anything. I'm always just like, okay, this might be something we need right now, so let's go this way and see what happens. And then sometimes it works and sometimes it's like I like completely missed the mark. But then, you know, and the times it works, it's super fun. And then sometimes it's just like, okay, well, it's not too late to turn around. Let's go back and do something else. But I'm also very honest and open about my process through everything. Like I can't lie. It's too much work for me. And so I just keep whatever is happening, they'll know. And yeah, so what I'm going to do for my newsletter, I'm going to do a thing where, because I'm going to have to harass my newsletter quite a bit the next month. Apologies to everybody. I'll try to make it fun and light, and then I promise to go back to the normal. But I'm going to make it behind the scenes kind of thing, where I'm just going to share like, oh my gosh, this happened and it was insane. You know, like I'm just going to share what this process feels like, because, you know, like Antonina, if you're doing something like that ever for your book or for a different book, then you'll know what to expect, right? And that's kind of what the Motherhood Project is about too. Is like, I want this book in the hands of not just like my people, but in the hands of new moms, so they can know that like, yeah, this shit is real. Like happens to you, and it's okay, and you will come out on the other end eventually. And you don't have to listen to the people who are like bullshit saying like, enjoy this time, because it's so not what it is. I mean, like they will still be snuggling when they're 9, and that is a really enjoyable time.
I mean, I'm just laughing because my son actually, so he's 11, and he was like at bedtime really late. Bedtimes get later and later. And he was like being really silly, and I was getting so annoyed. I was like, go brush your teeth right now. And he said, Mom, you know, I'm going to grow out of it, so enjoy it while it lasts.
He's heard you say that to clients before.
Possibly. Like, are you kidding me?
But that's such a lovely idea that it gets into the hands of new mums, because there's so many books about how to make your child sleep and how you should be doing things, and how if you do it this way,
how to keep your house spotless.
You know,
God,
and actually none of that works. In my experience, I've ripped books up and thrown them in the bin when people are trying to tell me to do things, because it just doesn't work. You've got to do it your own way and find your own way and just trust yourself.
But
and
that's the thing.
Lovely to have something like that where it's going to give people the confidence that it's okay, that it's okay that things are shit sometimes, it's okay that you've got to cry sometimes, it's okay that it's a mess sometimes, because that's totally normal.
And also, you know what, it's our experiences deserve to be in a book, and they deserve to be viewed as art and not just something to kind of share on Facebook or whatever. Like
it's the truth, isn't it?
It is the truth.
The truth should be shared so that people don't feel inadequate.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we've forgotten to follow our own instincts, because we are inundated with all this information. Excuse me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I often thought that was when I was a new mum, and I said, a couple of people came around and said, oh, this book was my savior. You have to read this book. It will save your life. Your child will sleep at exactly the time.
And then it turns out the person who wrote the book doesn't have children.
Yeah, and every provider, there's always somebody in this world we can invent things, and somebody's thought to invent like a thing where you can lie on the floor, like babies lie on the floor, and they've got the little thing on top where they can play. But like then I think back to like my mother's generation, and there was no books, and even like the generation before that, my grandmother's generation, there definitely weren't any books. There was community, there was family, there was friends, and you all helped each other. And my mum, I remember mum saying, the thing, that mat that you play on, and like the kids are playing with their toys. She used to get pieces of string and hang them across the room and hang like things on them for me to play with, because people made that. It wasn't available to them, and they worked it out, and they were in tune and intuitive with their kids. And you can do it on your own, and you just need the confidence that to just go and do it and feel what feels right, and sometimes and accept that sometimes it's not going to be the perfect thing that you're led to believe it should be.
But that's like, and with the string thing, if you did that today, someone would come and be like, oh, that's a child, that's a hazard, they'll like choke.
Yeah,
and it's like, that's the other thing, we're being told all these ways, things that we shouldn't do. So there's all these
we're being
rules.
taught to not trust our instinct a lot of the time, and
not know what's best for our own kid.
And add on top that sort of I still remember when I was pregnant, I had this idea in my head of how it's going to work, and I'm going to be working in my office, and my baby will be cooing in this basket with his toys, and everything's going to be perfect, and obviously like that was a lie. But again, like going back to like, we need to see what actually it looks like, because the ads show you this ideal 5 minutes that you might get.
That's
not
the 5 minutes that they're actually
yeah.
cooperating.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not like that. It really
no. The other like however many minutes are in the day, we're all chaos.
It's not to say that it's not wonderful. It's just that you need to
is
eyes open and understand.
But it's both. That's both. The thing.
Yeah,
there's a balance, and if like there's a phrase I really like. It's toxic positivity.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like I just can't handle it. It just like rubs me the wrong way when someone's just being fake happy, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing right now, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe with you.
This is weird.
Move. Yeah. But the thing is, if we just shower the world with like our perfections, which there's no perfection anywhere, but if we shower the world with our like seemingly perfect lives, and then we don't like balance that off with the other side, then we're just hurting people after us, like we're building this narrative that isn't real. And then it just, when it inflates, it like that bubble pops really hard.
And this is a thing, this is a problem with this day and age as well, because there's so much visual content that wouldn't have been around 50 years ago. These pictures of different lives and perfect lives and what you should aspire to and things, that just wasn't there in the same way as it is now. The modern,
they didn't have all this information.
They didn't.
I think we just have too much information. It's hard to filter
too much. Absolutely.
So, and we spend the time filtering instead of like focusing on like what's this kid's body telling me right now.
Right. Well, I think we probably should wrap up. We can talk to you forever. Clearly, we don't want to stop, but I think we got to stop. Thank you so much for coming, Kristine. We'll post the link in our group to your newsletter, and I read your newsletters every time. One of the few newsletters I actually read. Yeah, because they're interesting.
They're always really interesting
and real,
and you take really interesting angles. So I definitely.
So everyone subscribe to the newsletter, and once the Kickstarter is live, they'll also share. So
you have a special you have a special link to sign up for the Kickstarter campaign as well, don't you?
I sent it to you. I made a page. It's basically my newsletter, but it funnels into like the people who are interested in the book. So
we'll share it with everyone.
I'm gonna try to make it a little lighter for like some people want to know more than other people. I'm still working out how I'm gonna do that with the newsletter, so I don't want to harass.
And I signed up yesterday, so I can't wait to see.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let me just stop the live stream.